Morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here for this, but I especially want to thank Smart Communications for inviting me to speak to you all today. I've had the pleasure of working with Smart Communications throughout my career, really. I've been working in the insurance industry for 20 plus years. At AWS for about 7 years now. My role on our insurance industry development team is around core system modernization, as well as omni-channel experience. So very closely tied to the kinds of things you've seen today. And what a roadmap we saw just now. I mean, I hope what I'm going to present, and I believe it does, tie a lot of these things together, the way that we're seeing things happen in the industry, why we're developing what we develop, why we work with partners like Smart Communications to help develop that. One of the cool things I saw about it was, well, two big things. One was very much about solving customer problems, not technology for technology's sake. And that's going to be a theme throughout my presentation, really a theme that I present whenever I do presentations like this, speaking with customers, working with customers on projects. Very important. And particularly when we think about generative AI, there's so much hype around it. By the way, if you want to think about the hype, Allbirds, you know, the shoe company Allbirds, I saw a press release released yesterday. They are pivoting from making shoes, they are selling the shoe business and pivoting to cloud solutions. I swear, check it out. I'm pretty sure it's not a joke, but that is how much hype and pressure there is around generative AI. And there's a lot of pressure as well for you as organizations to potentially focus on the technology and not on the business outcomes. And what I loved about what I saw earlier just now from Smart Communications was that focus on real business outcomes. So I'm going to talk about today, my presentation is designed to act how we are working with Smart Communications to power that next generation, what you saw just now, the next generation of intelligent customer communications. Super important around this across financial services, certainly in insurance, my area, but financial services, healthcare, all these are the key. One of the most important parts is that communication, and one of the things that we, particularly in insurance, don't do well. And you see some numbers here, and of course these are insurance-specific numbers. I collaborated with Smart Communications on a study last year, so some of the numbers you'll see here come from that, including these. 84% say that communication is a big factor in their experience. 67% willing to switch if they don't get a good experience, and 79% expecting that consistent communication across not only channels, but also departments. You're speaking with billing. Are you using an IVR? You're talking to the claims department. Communication needs to be consistent across that and consistent across channels as well. And we've known for a long time in financial services and insurance in particular that communication has not really been our strong point. And it really hasn't necessarily until the past maybe 10 or so years been that much of a focus for them. But customer expectations are so high now. They are driven from outside of financial services, generally, outside of healthcare, certainly outside of insurance, in the sense of, think about retail experiences, Amazon, for example, Apple, others, making it seamless, super easy to get what you want, when you need it, how you want it. Customer service very high as well. Think about entertainment capabilities coming in. It's hard for us in insurance in particular, but across financial services, to keep up with those expectations. There's a big gap there. Digital engagement is how it's being driven now, which is good and bad. It's good in the sense that it is typically less expensive to engage with top quality digital materials versus top quality printed materials. Something we've relied on in insurance, certainly, for until recent years. But there's a shift there, and that shift is demanded by the customer themselves. So generally speaking, I would say that we know what customers want. They are telling us. We know there's a gap there. But there's a big gap in the way that we can actually address that. And we saw some of that in what Smart Communications presented just now. But if you think about the legacy systems that many of us have still in place today, the data estate is not modernized. It's difficult to unlock that data. It's difficult to, in these silos, present a unified view across the board. But it's really an opportunity. If you think that if we're all in the same boat, and generally speaking in insurance anyway, we are very much in that same boat for the most part, but if you can get ahead of that curve, if you can do a better job even slightly than your competitors, then you're going to really start to drive some competitive advantage there. All right, so now I'm going to talk pretty briefly about some of the things that we got out of that study from last year and some other trends I've seen in the industry. And why is this important? It's important because, first of all, as I mentioned before, building for a customer issue, a customer problem. That is key here, not technology for technology's sake. And everything we build at AWS comes from direct customer feedback. So when we build, when we work with the partners like Smart Communications, when we work directly with customers, these things come, the services we build, the solutions that we develop come from that direct communication. So here are some of the things we're seeing. One trend is around data quality, and this is something I harp on regularly with my customers and partners as well, around the challenge of unleashing the data. So in insurance, the trope is that we are very data rich but information poor. This is very true. So a lot of data is locked up in silos, difficult to access. That's been a problem for a long time, but the additional problem now is that there is a wealth of information available, third-party information, unstructured data, potentially to enrich the data that we have to understand our customers better, to communicate with them better. It's very difficult to do that with a fragmented, legacy-based data estate and core systems. And a big additional problem related is that most of the budget for many insurance companies goes to just keeping the lights on for those systems. 70 to 75% of the budget, much of the IT staff's time. I'm sure many of you have these problems. Difficult to innovate, difficult to experiment in generative AI, and especially in that side, difficult to bring that to production and really scale successful experiments if you have those legacy systems in place. A couple of quotes here from the banking side, from Bob Mira, that's quoted in the study. Also on the healthcare side, lack of strategy, lack of ability to execute, lack of a proper available data in order to get that done. And you already saw from Smart Communications some of the things they're doing in that space, but we work very closely with them too to support that idea of the unified customer data across all communication channels. Real-time data integration, agentic data integration, you saw that particularly in the last one around MCP-based agentic integration. Being able to speak with those core systems, if you don't have that in place, it's hard to get that real-time communication, real-time feedback, and reactive to what's going on with the customer in real time. And then AI-driven data management and validation. Another important point, and this touches on regulatory as well, is that these systems should not be making the decisions. And we need to reassure both customers as well as regulators that they are not. They are enabling these decisions to be made, but still following guide rails, audit trails, transparency can really enhance the ability to do that. Regulatory challenges are there for sure. Ethical considerations for our customers too, not just delivering AI slop to them, really using these tools, and there is a temptation to do that, just churning things out and sending them out because it's fast, it's easy to do, it's inexpensive, but that really frustrates customers and drives down the ability to engender trust with them and with you as a provider to them. From a regulatory perspective, North America and the United States, of course, we have 50 different regulatory bodies for insurance and many different directions going there, some no direction at all. Canada is a little bit more prescriptive with models. Europe, with DORA, HIPAA here in the United States, there's a lot of regulations, a lot of overlapping regulations, a lot of contradictory regulations too. This is impeding experimentation and certainly impeding moving the experiments to production. But there are ways, if you enable guardrails, thinking through transparency, audit trails, all these things in place, they can really be used to enhance the regulatory response and enhance customer communication and trust rather than push against it. Another trend is that this is a big opportunity. There's a lot of money being spent here, and there's two pieces of that. One is that you see $3 trillion transformation spending, digital transformation spending expected in 2027. A lot of money. More than half, really, 50% of insurers are making major upgrades around analytics, customer communication, and their core systems to enable that. And the key takeaway from this is that if you are not doing so, if you are not investing in these areas, you are in a serious danger of falling behind. And this cuts across all industries, and you see a few examples of those there. And where are we really pushing in these areas? In insurance, in particular, the customer experience has kind of been seen as not as important as other aspects. Underwriting, claims, very true, but we see a bit of a shift there. Now, 33%, it's still fairly low, in my opinion. It's fairly low, only 33%, but it is more, and it is gaining momentum there, certainly. 47% going to focus on AI enablement there, no surprise. You might expect that to be a little bit higher as well, particularly with the 64% of insurance executives saying that they are using generative AI in the business. But what does that mean that they're using it? That's the harder part, right? They may be using it in experiment mode, POCs. Relatively few are really moving this to production and trying to scale up the successes. There are some examples, but not as many as we would like. And where are they focusing from a CX perspective? Well, you see hyper-personalization, certainly, really driving down deep into understanding who the customer is and driving personalization there at scale and communications for that. Just-in-time reaction, being both proactive but also reactive, being able to provide feedback or new information or extra communications at the time that the customer is requesting it. Really driving a 360-degree view of the customer and real-time analysis, as well as looking back in time as well to be able to analyze how a call went, how a chat conversation went, really driving personalization and better results there. So continuous innovation and improvement is key to all of these things. And what you see here is related to our approach across the board is something we call driving toward a modern digital business. And it is based on our own Amazonian experience. And it's 5 parts to it. One, the first part is being customer obsessed. So really looking at the customer, not technology for technology's sake, but understanding your customer deeply, understanding where their pain points are and building for that. Then driving organizational change around that, having small, flexible teams that are empowered for success. We call those small teams 2 pizza teams, meaning they can be fed by 2 pizzas, small enough for that. But it's not just that they're small and agile. They need to be enabled to experiment as well. They need to be empowered and have a test and learn culture, something that is not that common within our heavily regulated and risk adverse industries. But you can drive that even within that context too. But all these things are not really useful if you don't have a modern core, if you don't have a modern core data estate, modern core systems and the data estate to go with it. Because what we're really trying to drive to is a strategic use of data. And that builds a flywheel effect around where we can really understand our customers better and drive better results for them. And from our perspective today, thinking that drives through to that unified communication approach. Omnichannel is a term that we use, of course, but it's really unified communication across the board, proactive, reactive, cross channels, cross departments. Now, of course, it'd be shocking if I didn't talk about generative AI. We've talked about it a lot today. As I mentioned, there's a lot of hype around this, but there's a lot of ways to use this in real effective ways and to really try to drive scale around successful POCs. One, in the context of what we're talking about today and for this conference is around discovery and fulfillment. So understanding your customers better. Use AI we've seen usage of AI for targeting customers better, real hyper segmentation, A/B testing at scale, really marketing, personalization for marketing, digital components around that, really driving down the cost of it, but driving up the ability to experiment around it as well and change direction if need be. Tying back to that modern digital business aspect I talked about before, you need to have the ability to cut off a project. You need to be able to say, this is not working, so let's switch directions and start anew. These can't be 6-month, 9-month, 12-month projects. They need to be short sprints so that you can try something, bring something out. If it's working, great, scale it up. If it's not, scale back. Proactive lead scoring and prioritization is important too. That pulls in the more traditional AI and ML that we've been using in the industry for many years, right? Fraud analytics, propensity to buy, pieces like that. These are in place. We know how to use them and we've been using them for many years, but tying that back into generative and other capabilities so that you can really understand who customers are better and really predict what they're going to be doing down the road. Then on the service, the fulfillment side too, a lot of capabilities, and chatbot is number one there. That's very common. We're not only using those. They do have their place, absolutely. Chatbots or chat with a human agent too, and there's a lot of blurring of those lines as well. It's important not to fall into that kind of uncanny valley trap of customers not sure if they're talking to a human or not. You need to have clarity there, transparency there, and it is becoming a blurred area because a lot of the tools are very good at doing that. Automated underwriting assistance. Now, again, very important point. We're not letting the bots make decisions around underwriting, around key things like claims. The knowledge work that our industry does is what differentiates us from other industries. And these tools, particularly around intelligent document processing, can really unlock capabilities here and really remove a lot of the drudgery, if you will, from those processes. A lot of paperwork, a lot of reading of reports, scanning reports, comparing things, comparing policies, terms and conditions. These tools with IDP are very good at doing that, but not making the decision, really driving that up and exposing that to the knowledge worker so that they can make a better informed decision and a better outcome for your customers. On the servicing side, servicing has long time been a underfunded part, particularly on the insurance side, seen as a need to have, but not particularly differentiating aspect. These new tools are allowing insurers to think about how they can really start to use servicing as a differentiator. Self-service is still a big focus of that, but really driving, not just driving down costs, but making it a much better experience for customers. There are generational divides. There's a trope as well that younger generations only want to use, don't want to speak to a human, and older generations do. It really, and there is some truth to that. The stats do show that to a certain extent, but mostly it's situational. If it is a claim about a tree falling on your house, very emotional, very important piece, something that's happening, most people, younger or older, are going to want to speak with a human. If it is something lightweight, like a broken glass claim, then probably anybody of any generation may just want to use a chatbot to get that done. But the key of all this is really, that last bar at the bottom is that proactive communication around renewal, around payments, around claims decisions, claims processing going on. If we can proactively reach out to customers before they need to reach out to us. When they reach out to us, it's starting to get to a crisis point. They don't know what's going on, they feel frustrated, they're confused by the claims payout. Proactively reaching out to them, even if the news is not exactly what they wanted to hear in terms of a denial, for example, they feel more empowered and they feel like the process is more transparent. It really builds a lot of trust. Claims, again, from an insurance perspective at least, this is the most important transaction that anybody ever has with their customer. Whether that customer is a large enterprise, an individual, a family, the claims piece is key. And generative AI works across the board. As I mentioned, the knowledge work around that, think about first notice of loss, being able to pull in key information, unstructured data, video, pictures in real time, police reports, doctor's reports, other pieces around that, being able to pull that in, pull up the data, and make automated assessments in many cases. And you can work that into your process too, so that perhaps below a certain bar, you're comfortable, as long as all the information is there and has been verified, that you can pay out a claim if it's, say, sub $500 without any real process going into that other than your standard claims process. Now again, key point, the agent, the generative AI agent is not making the decision here. It's your claims process that you control and you have exposed to your regulators as well. But these tools can pull the key information in so that it is all fed into the system and the decision is made in a moment. Fraud detection too. The other side of that is, of course, these tools are making it very easy for fraudsters to perpetrate fraud. It's a bit of an arms race on that side. So very important to keep up the skills and tools and talent in that area. But then again, in this context with smart communications, that communication aspect of it, ensuring that we are communicating decisions, good and bad, throughout the process to our claimants so they feel like they're part of that process. Certainly a lot of business impact here around retaining and growing customers. Some stats that we have around that. If using generative AI, 10 to 30% conversion improvement, 10 to 15% CSAT improvement, 25% revenue growth across industries. There are a lot of ways to use these, but there's a lot of ways to, as I mentioned before, to damage your trust with your customers too. So they have to be used with some, you have to think about it and think about how you're using the tools. So bringing it all together, as I mentioned, what we do at AWS is we build based on what we hear from you, from our customers. And one of the things that we were hearing from our customers is that, well, customers would say, okay, AWS, I understand what you're saying about generative AI, cloud computing, these capabilities, partners, work running on AWS and integrating, but can you really show us what that looks like? Can you show it working in the real world? And so we came up with this concept of the model carrier standards approach. We started with term life only because term life is fairly straightforward and simple. We wanted to work out something fairly quickly, but it does touch on all the key aspects of the value chain. And we did, we built it out end to end through quotation, through policy, through the application and underwriting, all self-service. In that underwriting piece, we're using intelligent document processing. I'm not going to show it today, but you can come grab me afterwards and I'll show you how we did it. Throughout the term life claims process, if that self-reported health aspect of it, questionnaire, there are typically a lot of knockout questions in there. One of them is often whether or not you have cancer. If you have cancer, usually a knockout, but if you had a previously detected cancer, it might be a referral to manual underwriting, which is more expensive, time-consuming, and in term life, of course, we want to, or any really product, but we want to drive down the acquisition cost. So in this case, you can upload a statement of health from a physician, and the system will read that through intelligent document processing, read that using generative AI, push that into your existing underwriting process. And so if all the information is correct and ticks all the boxes, then you can move on in that process. Again, generative AI is not making a decision. It is your underwriting process that you have shown to regulators. It's just taking that drudgery work of typing information in that a human would normally do and doing so in an automated, agentic way. And then through servicing and claims too, and claims communication, and that's a piece that we've built, and I'll show you in a sec, with Smart Communications. So what does that look like from a AWS services perspective? We've built what we call the Model Carrier Standards Integration Fabric. But these are tools, services from AWS that you're probably familiar with, perhaps using today, but put together in a logical way to tie together both those underlying core systems, systems of insight, systems of record, both modern systems as well as legacy systems, tying them to the omni-channel experience on the top, and being able to flow through all those pieces too, including Smart Communications for outbound communication. So as I mentioned, of course, the claims communication piece is key, giving information throughout the process, but at the end as well. Now, on the claim side, claims denial letters, particularly, this is problematic, and it's problematic on a few levels. Obviously, the claimant is not happy with that, a denial. But it's also problematic from both a regulatory perspective and a legal perspective, potentially, as well as from a human resource and a talent perspective. A customer of ours is using generative AI to solve one of the problems they saw. Of course, the problem with customers being unhappy with unclear communication around a denial, but it was also a big problem for talent retainment. They were losing a lot of experienced adjusters because that piece of the process was so painful for them. Took a long time, was not standardized, but that standardization, they also realized that there was a potential legal exposure there as well because they were not standardized. So they're using generative AI to standardize the documentation around that, similar to what I'm going to show you now. Generate those claims denial letters very quickly, but of course they're still human in the loop. The supervisor or the adjuster does the review of it and does the actual sending of the document. You can do it in an automated way. This carrier has decided to have the human do so. But it's now much more standardized, much easier for the adjusters to do, and a much clearer process for the claimants as well. Very quick demo. This is the reference architecture around it. So you see in the middle those integration fabric capabilities. Basically what's happening is in the front end, customer comes in either through self-service or through a CSR, is initiating a claim. It's all managed through the agent core gateway, is making the communication. You saw some of the things earlier that Smart Communications was showing around MCP. But there's also API calls via Lambda too. There's going to be a variety of systems here. And our approach around this is to build capabilities to accelerate your time to value with the Smart Communications of the world, with the Guidewires of the world. As you're building these capabilities, we want to enable you to do so, leveraging these tools to do so more quickly so that you can roll them out more quickly and take advantage of all the cool stuff you were seeing earlier in terms of the presentation. So this is going to be a little bit slow. I apologize because it is running at regular speed. My fault. I meant to run a little bit faster, but I'll just talk you through it. So a couple key points. We built this as a prototype using Kiro. These tools you can use to build front ends very, very quickly. And they're great for experimentation. Now, there's obviously not a lot of pretty pictures on this or anything, but you can use these tools to start experimenting, see what works, add the additional marketing language and colors, your branding and everything else around that too. You see here, this is the intelligent document processing piece. So we're uploading the death certificate to the form. And normally this would take a little bit of time, of course. The form would be sent in, perhaps by mail. Take some time to have the claim be read, adjudicated, decision be made around that. We're going to be able to do this within seconds, really, because the tools are there to allow the decision to be made within the context of your rules. So what you see here are some Jupyter tabs and others to see what's going on in the background. Basically, it's looking up specific information across the policy system, so agentically calling the backend to the system of record. Who's the customer? Well, it's creating a new claim number for them as well, a unique claim number, storing that in DynamoDB, pulling that claim information, enriching that with data from both the form that was filled out, as well as the policy information, any prior claims, or any other information that's in there. That's going to be encoded in the claims process. So it's going to look for specific information around what the policy is, what the date of birth was, the date of death, if that's within the policy timeline. All these pieces are within the tools there to be able to replicate what you already have in terms of the claims process, but leveraging these within the context of intelligent document processing and agentic AI. So you see looking up a policy holder name, policy date, if the policy is active or not, some knockout questions within that. This is a fairly simple claims process we've built here. Obviously yours would be much more complex than this, but all those rules are embedded in here and the decision can be made in an automated way, all the key information. And not only that, but the key information behind the decision can then be presented to Smart Communications in the creation of that outbound communication around the claims denial. So you see here the claims adjudication status around it. Now it's going to feed this information into the regulated template, the regulatorily approved template for claims denials that Smart Communications can push out. So it pulls all that key information in. It's generating the document. It's coming up in a second here. Here we go. Now you have your outbound letter, right? So all that key information was pulled from the policy record, from the self-reported information during the claims form. All the templates are within there. You can be rest assured that what you have built and regulators have approved is what's being presented here. All the key information is there. Again, the adjudicator is the one who's making the decision at the end. It's going to send this letter out. But the system has pulled all the key information, verified that, and presented it into this document to make it seamless for you to get through. I'm going to speed up a little bit here, since I only have 2.5 minutes left. As I mentioned, I've had the honor and pleasure of working with Smart Communications for a long time, but we as an organization do so as well. And there's some things for you to think about there. When you are thinking about experimenting in these spaces, leveraging tools like you've seen here, that you've seen from Smart Communications earlier, and you want to build something out, you want to try some generative AI capabilities, you want to do experimentation and see how you can maybe scale up what you've done, we're very successful when we're working with partners like Smart Communications, ourselves, and you. Because again, we build based on what we hear from you. Pull us into a room, we've got a lot of great resources we take advantage of, and Smart Communications as a partner has a lot of great resources they can take advantage of from AWS to support you as well. There's some risk to inaction. I talked about that before, some of the stats I showed before. You're going to fall behind if you're not experimenting in this space. You're going to be at a competitive disadvantage. Customer expectations are rising and continue to rise at a rapid rate. They are not going back. They're not going back and being happy with opaque communications, not understanding how the claim was processed. They demand these things, and rightfully so. Talent and cost pressure. I mentioned that customer before worried about their talent, losing their experienced talent because they didn't have, that process itself was very frustrating for them. But it's also the technology too. People coming into the industry want to use modern technology, and that's a way to attract and retain talent. Last thoughts around this. If you're not experimenting, you got to get going. So start now. Build that foundation. Start experimenting, yes, but you also need modern core. You need a data estate that can pull in and enrich your current data with existing data. You got to liberate the data that you have out of its silos. Get it in a place that you can do analytics against it. Think about that customer. Who's the customer? What are we doing from them? It's not because this cool technology is here. It's because our customers are demanding X. What can we build to help that? And it might not be generative or agentic AI. It might be something that you're already doing. It might be some other process. It might be direct communication with them. But really think about that customer. Use partners. Partner strategically with us as well. As I mentioned, take advantage of the resources that you have and Smart Communications has to build and to experiment and iterate. Build that test and learn culture. Really don't have those long-term projects. Think about how you can do short-term sprints, so you can experiment. If it's working well, scale up. If it's not, you can scale back. I know I'm out of time, but just one last thought. Design to act, right? This is the future of financial services, healthcare, insurance. There's a lot of technology there, yes. And it might be weird for a technology representative like myself to be saying that it's not a technology problem necessarily. Technology can support it, but it's not technology for technology's sake. It's about empowering your employees to give your customers an amazing experience every time. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your attention. Thank you.